Good evening, everyone.
Kavod how are you?
Baruch Hashem, thank you.
Good afternoon. The light looks very dark, Rabbi. Is the lights off or?
Oh, I'll check everything.
Okay.
I'll check everything. Mm. Yeah, how does it look now?
Brighter.
It's better? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're continuing with the Bet Yosef. It says over here, the bet. מה שכתב ואל תבשיל שנשתנה צורתו נתקלקל. Oh, right. So we have here also a cooked dish and it got spoiled. So we spoke about that in the tour last week. So it says regarding this in Bet Yosef, פרק כיצד מברכים. It says in the Gemara there, ודבר פשוט הוא, דהיינו דווקא כשאני מתקלקל קצת. It's talking about got a little bit, spoiled. דהיינו מתקלקל גמרי, because if it's totally spoiled, כיוון דלא חזה לאכילה, since it's not edible, אין מברכים עליו כלל. We wouldn't bless at all. Interesting. Okay. So we got a little bit more here. It says over here, also now we have vinegar, right, that was mixed with water. So we said on these things that it was shakol. So it says over here in the Bet Yosef, Sham Mishnah ala chometz mevorech shakol. It says, right, on vinegar you bless shakol. Katav Rosh, says the Rosh, ve'im tomar ha'ichiv mevarchin ala chometz. And if you're going to ask me, says the Rosh, how do we bless on vinegar? It says over there in Yoma, that if a person drinks vinegar, Yom Kippurim vinegar, patur is patur. Why? Because it's not called eating. Lamed Vav, and above, right in the Gemara, in Lamed Vav Amud Bet, Gabe Pilpele Yeveshta, talking there about the issue of dry peppers. Mishavinan bracha leyom Kippurim. So we say, right, that we equate it with the blessing on Yom Kippur. Yesh lomar demayre bezug ktsad. Also there, right, it says talking about that. Okay, so what do we? How do we reconcile this? We say that it's talking about it's diluted. So when you dilute the vinegar, it becomes somewhat edible, right, drinkable, whatever you want to call it, right? And but when it's totally, when it's totally undiluted, so it's too strong, too sour. So there, you're not going to bless anything. So So he says it's, actually when it's diluted, he says it's good, it has some good properties. Uh, so what does it do? He says it like makes you, it's like makes you feel good. I don't know, whatever. It makes you feel, stable, your mind, whatever. God knows. And I mean, also, this could be another thing, which is that a person has a toothache, right? So what did he do? He put a lot of vinegar into the soup. Veshotel, he drinks it for healing. So that's another right purpose that it could serve. The chometz ikar. So he says the main thing there is the main ingredient is the vinegar. Mikom makom agav marak. But he says because of the soup, right? Itle hanamina. He has some benefit from it. In other words, he enjoys it somewhat. Ubay beruche. So therefore, he has to bless. Because we say above lamed vav amud aleph gabe shemen zayit regarding olive oil, right? We said something similar. Shenatunu tochi anigron. They put it into that potion, right? Which we said, well, some kind of a vegetable broth. Uh, yeah, I think we said spinach, whatever it was. Ad kan neshana, that's the end of it. Rabbeinu Yonah katav, says Rabbeinu Yonah, sheshoteh chometz b'yom kippurim, if he drinks vinegar on Yom Kippur, afal pi shehu patur, even though he's absolved, he's not liable on that. B'shiur revi'it, with the size of revi'it, which is 3 ounces. We already mentioned that. Kivan de kaimalan. But since we hold that if he drank a lot of it, chayav, he's liable. Oh, why? Because when he drinks a lot, he does get some benefit there. He enjoys it. I guess because he's thirsty. I don't know. God knows. Lenyan bracha. When it comes to nami, so also when it comes to blessing, lo yetze mitot ochel. So it doesn't, but doesn't right? It's still classified as a food. Therefore, you got to bless on it, he says. So it says, but if you're drinking revi'it or less than revi'it, you're going to bless on it right beforehand. So you shouldn't get any benefit from this world, enjoy the world without a blessing. But you're not going to bless in the end. Because it's not considered to be drinking for Yom Kippur. But he says more than this, that's considered to be drinking. B'Yom Kippurim on Yom Kippur, mevarech alav techila. So then he would bless beginning, and also the end. Katkan. That's very interesting. Wow, this is some interesting stuff here. So who's that? Rabbeinu Yonah. Okay. Oh, okay. All right, it's got some interesting ideas. So he says then he would bless beginning and end. Rabbeinu katav kedivei Rosh, but the Rabbeinu, right, the Tur, wrote like the Rosh, right? So it seems like he favors that opinion, the opinion of the Rosh. Okay, so let's see the Shulchan Aruch on this, which is bet. So it says the Shulchan Aruch, ala chometz levado eno mevarech klum. If he's drinking, right, just vinegar, doesn't bless on that because it's too sour. Mipnei shehu maziko, because that's harmful. Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, what about diluted vinegar? What is the halacha for that? So we already said, right, in Aleph that was shakol. So basically that's the halacha, right? When it comes to vinegar, if it's raw vinegar, right, it's too sharp. So we're not going to bless on that. You don't enjoy it at all. It's harmful. But when it comes to diluted vinegar, there's going to be shakol. Okay, great. That's the story there. By the way, it's a little bit different in our times. Why? Because most of our vinegar today is synthetic. Basically, it's like made in the lab, whatever. It's it's not really the vinegar they're talking about. They're talking about wine vinegar, which has a much better taste. Anyway, so the question is, will we bless on that? On the wine vinegar? I'm sorry, on the synthetic vinegar, will we bless on that? I can't tell you. It's I guess it's if it's diluted, yes. But if not, right? No, no, anybody, nobody drinks vinegar today, so it's not really relevant for us, But that's the way it is. Yeah, I think that the synthetic vinegar that they sell today is probably too sharp, to bless on. Too sour. My humble opinion. Anyway, let's see the Mishnah Berurah what he says. Let's see what he's got to say about that. Right. So, Mishnah Berurah mentions that, right? That we're talking about that in the beginning it was wine, right? And then it soured. So there's some room to make a blessing, right? And something like that. There's still some taste there. You can enjoy something there. But when it comes to synthetic, it's hard to enjoy something like that. And then, oh, okay. So how does the Mishnah Berurah define undiluted vinegar? So he says like this: ודווקא בחומץ חזק שנתחמץ כל כך שמבעבע כשמשליכין אותו על הארץ. Oh boy. אבל בחומץ שאינו חזק כל כך, ודאי יתלהנה מיניה ובאי ברוכה. Wow. So says the Mishnah Berurah something pretty, some sharp words, like just like the vinegar is sharp. Some sharp words. So what is he saying over here? He says that we're talking about vinegar, which is so strong that if you cast it onto the ground, you spill it like onto the ground, it's mebabe, which means like it bubbles. So that means like it's like super acidic. Oh boy. Well, our vinegar is not that strong. That's for sure. It's not that much. But he says, but he says, if it's not that strong, it's not going to bubble when you spill it on the floor, right? Then he says that you do have to bless on that because um, there is some enjoyment there. I see his point, I see the point, what he's saying. That's all. I guess you can say, that there is some enjoyment, with vinegar. There's something there. I guess you have to say it's an acquired taste, because we don't really have this taste. Like, okay. I guess in those days they enjoyed it a little bit more than we do. Okay, whatever. It's all good. Yeah. Hmm. I wonder what he says about this in Yosef. Oh boy, I would be curious to see that. Just take a quick look there. Uh, as they say, curiosity killed the cat, right? I'm one of those curious guys. Okay, let's see what we got here. Hmm. Doesn't seem to mention vinegar in this chapter. Hmm. I don't think he mentions it, but oh, he does mention lemon. I'm gonna do a quick search to see if I can find this thing. No, it doesn't mention it. Okay, doesn't talk about it. All right, forget about it. But I think the words of the Mishnah Berurah are pretty strong. He's got a point there. Perhaps we can say that that would also apply to synthetic, but I still have a doubt about that. Okay, so we'll move on. So we're going to Gimel. So it says over here, right? We mentioned this last week in the tour that you have like wine which is somewhat sour but not totally, right? In other words, it could be that there's two variations, right? Which is that it smells like vinegar. I'm sorry, it smells like wine and but it tastes like vinegar, or the other way around. Right? So it says regarding this, Bet Yosef, Lashon HaBraita, it's in the Braita, Yain Shikrim, פירש רש"י בוטיר בלעז ומפרש רבנו דהיינו דווקא בריחי חמרה וטעמי חלה. So it says Rashi, what does this mean, this Gemara? We're talking about wine where the smell is like, it smells like wine, but it tastes like vinegar, or the other way around. Um, so what's the rule? אם ריחי חלה וטעמי חמרה, הפליגו באביי ורבא. So he says there's a machloket between Abai and Rabbah. Peg bata de avodah zarah, the last parak of the avodah zarah. V'ilchata kerava. So it's we pass like Rava. The amar de have chamra. So Rava holds regarding wine, which is the smell is like vinegar, and the taste is like wine. Machloket about that. And we paskin like Rava that he says it's considered to be wine. So we do bless on that. That's what Rabbi Yochanan holds. פרק המוכר פירות over there in Balbata. צדיק לאו עמוד א', וילקח, צדיק לאו עמוד א', כך מברך עליו בורא פי הגפן. So therefore he says the rule is, on that we bless בורא פי הגפן. The truth is, I've had this like one time experience in my life where I drank wine, which is like right on the border. it smelled like wine, so I thought it was okay. But when I tasted it, it tasted like vinegar. So I was surprised by that because I thought, I didn't know that could happen. You have a split decision like that. I wasn't aware of that. I was in my younger days. But anyway, right? So we'll see in the Shulchan Aruch how he paskins about that. Zeh Shulchan Aruch reche chala v'tameh chamra, right? So that means it smells like vinegar, but it tastes like wine. So what is the rule? Chamrahu, that's considered to be wine. So therefore we bless Bar Given. But on the other hand, right, if it smells like wine, but it tastes like vinegar, so there it's considered to be vinegar. So what does that mean? That we will bless on that shakol, because as we said, right, when it comes to diluted vinegar, that's what we bless. So it's like on the border, it's not really, very sour yet. It's like, dangling on the border there. So this is the reason why it has this kind of a thing, where it's like, it smells like this, but tastes like that. Okay. So what do we see from there? That the main thing is the taste, right? Not the smell. The smell doesn't really matter so much. Makes sense, After all, we bless because of your taste buds, right? Not because of what you smell on your nose. That's fragrances. That's something else. It's a different department, right? We're going to talk about that later on. And we're not talking about that now. Fragrances. So that's a story. Hmm. Okay. Yeah. That's the thing, when you have a situation like that where wine is going sour, and it's becoming vinegary, there is still some enjoyment there, to drink that stuff. There's something there, and that's why we do shakol, But when it gets really, really, really bitter, so then it's like it's like acid. You're drinking acid basically. You know, they taught us in chemistry class when we were in college, whatever. That's acetic acid is vinegar, right? That's what it is. It's an acid. It's one of the weaker acids, but still, pretty. It's pretty potent when it's undiluted. It's pretty strong. Acetic acid. So that's the story. Okay, I'm not gonna get too acidy. And we have enough acids already. That's it, right? We'll go to the next one. Okay. So, right, that's what he says in Dalid. So first I'll do the Beit Yosef and we'll come back to this. We pretty much already covered it, but I'll read it again. So let's go back to Bet Yosef. Here's Dalit. Okay, so it says over here, Katuv b'shibul eleket. Right? It says in this rabbi, b'shem sefer truma. Name this rabbi. Chometz afar gav de mishum de enanu bekin b'shur chazko. So he catches that. You see what I told you guys. Matai karui chometz mishum. So he says we're not really expert in this to categorize. When it's sour enough to be called vinegar. We don't know that line, that fine line that you cross over from wine to vinegar. We don't know that. So he says, because of that, Mishum Hachi Oser Bumaga Goy. So therefore, he says, we have a doubt about this, It's in a state of doubt. And therefore, if a Goy touches it, right, uh, you know, it could be that it's called wine. So therefore, it's forbidden to drink that because it's a wine that was touched by a goy. מיהו, ספירה לעניין, but it says when it comes to bracha, when it comes to blessing, דכיוון דבני אדם נמנעים לשתות ממנו, since people don't really drink this stuff, when it gets like that, right on the border there, מחמת חומצו, because it's too sour already. So if it's that sour that people refrain from drinking it, karui chometz, it's called already vinegar. Okay. Ve'en mevarachin la borei pei gefen. So therefore we don't bless borei pei gefen. Okay, that's pretty clear. So let's see Shulchan Aruch on that. I guess we're not finished with the vinegar yet. I'm sorry, but I couldn't get you out of it. So it says over here, Kol shebnei adam nimna'im lishtato. So it says Shulchan Aruch like this: anything which people refrain from drinking, because it's too sour. And we don't bless Peri Gefen. So it says in parentheses, Ela Shakol. So what do we bless? Shakol. So there you go, right? That's the story. Okay, let's see what Mishnah Berurah says here. If you got anything to add. Let's say okay, no, that's pretty clear. Nothing really, nothing major here. Nothing earth-breaking, earth-shattering. Okay, great. So that's the story there with the vinegar. We're done. So we'll move on to the other stuff. Let's go to hay. Oh, so now we're getting to the lees of the wine, shimrei yain, right? That's a solid matter, that settles on the bottom. As we said last week, right? Now they filter it out, so you don't really find it in the bottle anymore. You know, so in modern times, we don't even see this stuff. You're only going to find it in the barrel, where it's being stored. That's about it. Okay, let's go to Bet Yosef. Let's see what we got. So it says over here, we already read the tour, but I'll just repeat it. So it says, right, that when it comes to the lees of the wine, it says in this perek, Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef these two rabbis said, En halacha ke'acherim. We don't pass like acherim, he says. Mifaresh Hatam explains over there, the Tameh Tana, the Tana Kama, Mishum de Afal Gav. So he says the reason of the first opinion, Tana Kama, Mishum de Afal Gav, the It Behu Tamach de Chama, because even though it has the taste of wine, Mi Sabrat Chamra. Oh, what? Do you think it's wine? It's called wine? Kiuhahu. That's just the acidity, right? That's what it is. It's not really the taste of wine. You're just tasting the acidity. כתבו התוספות, so עושה תוספות בסוף פרק כיצד, this parak Kitzur Mevarachim Brachot. Demare de Rama Behu Maya. So it says we're talking about that he added water to it. But lo Rama Behu Maya. If we didn't add water to it, Mevarech Alen Bari Pia Gefen. That's going to be Bari Pia Gefen. V'achi Mashma Mingarsinan. That's the way it implies. Since we have a text two hatam over there. Negimra Amar Avad Kuli Alma Rama Telata Ve'ata Arba. Right. So he says according to everybody, if he put 3 parts and the fourth part chamra, right? So the fourth part, there's 4 parts of wine. Hu rama tlata ve'ata tlata ve'lo klum hu ki plige de rama tlata ve'ata tlata ופגע וכיוון דלא קיים עלן דכאחרים, לא מברכים על בורא פי הגפן, לך דרמה תלתה ואתה 4. So he's talking about various ratios and proportions, right? When it becomes, taste of wine or not. But if it's less than this, no, not so. וכך הם דברי רבנו, and that's what it says in the Rabbeinu, the Torah. Okay, I'm going to read through this, and then we may have to review it if we need to. So I just want to get the general idea of what he's saying here. So it says Miu Katav Rabbeinu Yonah, but says Rabbeinu Yonah בסוף פרק קצר ממלכים in the brachot. דהיינו דווקא ביינות shenahen. So that was with their wines, the good old days, right? שהיו חזקים, they were strong. אבל במקום שאין היינות חזקים, but it says in a place where the wines are not strong, כל כך they're not so strong, אפילו רמה תלתה ואתה ארבע, right? So even if you put 3 parts and came out 4, no, it's not so. לא דיינין על חמרה. We don't consider that to be wine. ולא מברכים עליה, we don't bless on that. בורא פרי הגפן. ואפשר שמפני זה, it could be that because of this, לא פירש שהריף, the Rif didn't explain, וכתב סתם, he wrote just, regular, undefined, אין הלכה כאחרים. He said הלכה is not like אחרים. So he says it seems correct what he says. Okay, that's how the Beit Yosef concludes here. Yeah, so we may have to come back to this, right, and do it again. Let me just see in the Shulchan Aruch what language he uses here. Let's see. Yeah, so says Shulchan Aruch like this. So as we said, right, the lees of the wine, the blessing is Borei Pri HaGefen. Natan Behem Maim. So if he added water, Im Natan Shlosha Midot Maim B'Matzah Arba, right? So, see, that's the thing. The Shulchan Aruch explains this much more clearly. So we may not need to review it because it's all here, Everything is here. So let's just try to understand all these ratios here. We're talking about different proportions going on. So he says like this, right? As we said, again, right? The lees of the wine is going to be Borei Pri HaGefen. So meaning what? That they have the taste of wine, it's like imbibed in them, imbued in them, whatever. So he says, if he put water, now, okay, that's just regular. Now, if he added water to it, right? So it depends on the ratio. Okay, so let's understand what are we talking about. He put, let's say, 3 parts wine, right, and found 4 parts. So meaning what? That the lees is only 1/4 of the whole mixture. So it's only 1/4, right? So it says Havale Keyain Mazug Barech. So that's like considered to be like diluted wine. So you will bless on that. Borei Pri HaGefen. So if it's 1 to the part, it's like 1-4, the ratio, right? You will bless on that because that's considered to be like the good ratio, to drink. But again, right? We already mentioned that that's talking about the old days when the wine was strong. And nowadays, right? It's not that strong. So if you put, 3 parts water, that it's already like it's like Kool-Aid. It's not really wine anymore. It's nothing serious there. Going on. So therefore, it's not going to be the same thing today. That's why Maran, my rabbi, used to say, always, he used to repeat this right up and down, like all his life he was talking about this stuff. What was he saying? He was saying, right, that nowadays he used to say that since the wines are not so strong as they used to be, so therefore he said that if it's more than 50% water, right, it's considered to be, Kool-Aid. It's not wine anymore. So he blessed Shakol. That's what he said, So that's the rule for today, But in those days, it was 3 parts water and 1 part lees or wine, right? That was the proper mixture. Forget about that, right? We're not living in that time. Anyway, it's good to know. We have to know. We have to know the rules. Okay, so right, let's move on. So it says im matzah pachot, but if he found less than 4 parts, so meaning what that the lees was even less than 1/4, Even though it tastes like wine, Kiwa says it's just acidity. It's Kool-Aid. Right? So therefore it's going to be shakol. So it comes now, but right, the Shulchan Aruch says we're talking about their wines. Right? They were very strong, as we said, right? They were super strong. They must have been, by the way, according to what we're saying over here, it must have been like the strength of our, you know, I mean, I hate to say this, but like our whiskey, today. Can you imagine how strong that was? That's pretty potent, in those days. Can you imagine? Uh, so it was like 100 proof. Can you imagine? Whoa, that's very strong. 80 proof, 100 proof. That's what we're talking about. So they need to put into a lot of water in there. Yeah, that's what it is, right? So okay, but it says now, right? Since they're not so strong anymore like they used to be, and he's talking about 500 years ago. Can you imagine what it is today? It's even probably weaker, right? It gets weaker as we go along. But it says our wines, which are weak, שאינן חזקים כל כך, אפילו רמת תלתה ואתה ארבעה, so even if you put 3 parts water and 1 part, right, came out 4 parts, right, אינו מברך עליו בברגע, you're not going to be very effective. ונראה שהם משערים בשיעור שמוזגים יין שבאותו מקום. So look what he says, right, conclusion of Shulchan Aruch. This is an important thing. So he says what we should do is, measure this, in other words, what's going to be the cutoff? Right? That we're gonna say, right? That's the line where it becomes, it goes from wine to Kool-Aid. Maybe I shouldn't use Kool-Aid, right? Cooler, wine cooler. Becomes a wine cooler, whatever it is, right? So the question is, right, where does it cross the line? In the old days, it was 1 to 4, right? But now, says the rabbi, my great rabbi, he says it's 50%. That's the cutoff. Once the majority is water, that's it, right? It's wine cooler. It's not wine anymore. That's it. So that's what he says over here, in the Shulchan Aruch. We should go according to the custom of where you live, because they know how to do, according to the strength of the wine, where you live, where your situation is. That's the idea. Yeah, so the rabbi, he spent his life, talking about this because he complained all the time, about these wine manufacturers in Israel. I'm talking about, right? Because he wasn't here, he didn't know what was going on here. But in Israel, there are some wine manufacturers, who were putting a great deal of water into the wine, adding a great deal. Like we're talking like it was less than 20% wine. It was 80%, like more than 80% water. That's what they were doing in the old days in Israel. And the rabbi objected, against this, and then they changed it a little bit and they put like a stronger ratio of wine, but still not very strong. So the rabbi used to say, about those wines, which were made by Ashkenazim. He used to say about those wines, says you cannot bless Borei Pia Geffen on them. These are wine coolers. These are Kool-Aid. So he says the blessing will be shakol. And so therefore, right, if you go according to this rule, when you buy, like wine in the store, like dry wine, like good quality stuff, right? The good stuff. And so what you should do is, if you want to dilute it, I by the way dilute it all the time. I never drink it raw. I never drink it undiluted. It's not good according to Kabbalah, to drink like that. Not good. Anyway, right. What I do is I always make sure that I'm not adding, more than 50% water. It's always going to be less, depending on the strength of the wine, right? I add like 20%, 10%, something like that, but never more than 50%. Because, once you do that, it becomes so flimsy, it's just like acidity there. It's a Kool-Aid, cooler, wine cooler. That's not serious. That's not wine. So therefore, the blessing is shakol. Ah, there you go. So, all right. So let's see the Rama, what he says here. Oh, look what the Rama says, right? So this is where the Ashkenazim get their custom from. Now you guys are gonna see, right? Why they were doing what they were doing over there, these Ashkenazi manufacturers, right? Because it says in the Ramah, "Vivad shelo yeh hayayin echad meshisha b'mayim." So he says, but you know what? Okay, we can go according to the custom. He says, but it should never be, more than 1 to 6 ratio, right? Because that's like total water. It's totally water. That's not wine anymore. So that's why they were doing like this over there in Israel. And before the rabbi came down on them, they were putting like a very like one sixth, 1/5 of 80%, more than 80% water, only 17% wine. That's what they were doing in the old days. So that's according to the Ramah. But the rabbi said, that's not for us. I'm sorry, but we don't go like that. So yeah, there was a whole thing, a ruckus that the rabbi made about this in Israel. It was a whole thing there. So that's why if you go to Israel, and even here the wines also that are imported from Israel, you see it says over there, right, that it's according to Bet Yosef, right? So what does that mean, Bet Yosef? That means what the rabbi said. My great rabbi, he said, right, that it should never be more than 50% water. That's not wine. Shiakol. Okay, so we got that. Let's see if we can knock off another one. We got 5 minutes. I don't want to shortchange you guys, make sure you get your money's worth. So let's see what we can do here. Okay. So it says here in the Bet Yosef, כתב רבנו ירוחם, this says this rabbi, בשם התוספות, name התוספות, דהוא הדין לתמד שדרכן לעשות והחרצנים, אחר דרכו הנביאים, שמשליכים עליהם מים, שאין מברכים עליו בורא גפים, זולתי אם השליך על השלושה ואתה ארבעה. So he says the same thing also, right, the rule we just stated now, he says the same thing also applies to temed. So temed is like also another way of making like some kind of wine beverage. So what is this wine beverage? What they used to do is, they would take the after they already like treaded on the wine, to squeeze out all the juice. So the skins will be left over, the husks, the skins that would be left over, and what they would do is, they would take those husks, and soak them in water. So little by little, right, the water would absorb the taste of those husks, skins, whatever, right? And they would like it makes a nice drink, It's like a liquor, like nice liquor. This thing, and they call it temed. So the question is, what is the blessing on that, right? When you do that, so according to this rabbi, it's the same rule, which is it has to be 1 to 4 ratio in order to be bar pia giffen. But if it's less than that, he says it's gonna be shekol, same thing. So as we said, right, that was what the good old days when we had the strong wines. Okay, fine. So now it goes on to say here, ואתה ארבע והרמב"ן כתב על החצנים שדרכם ברגל אין משימין עליהם קורה לעצמם נשאר בהם לחלוכית יין וגרעינין שאפילו השליך בו 3 או 4 או 3 או פחות מברכין עליו בורא וגפן. So Ramban says differently, right? He says that even if you soak it, right, and you have 3 parts water, and in the end you also have 3 parts, in other words, nothing was added, still he says blessing is Bor Pia Geffen. Right? Shiyayin hu, because he says that's called wine. So what does that mean? Since it absorbed the flavor, of the husks, the skins, the seeds, right, all that stuff, right? It has now it has a status of wine, he says. בכל זה כתב הרב מגיד, that's what it says הרב מגיד, פרק כ"ט בהלכות שבת, לא עזוב שבת, בשם רשב"א, name רשב"א, כתב האגור, so you have 2 Rishonim here that agree with that, right? Ramban and Rashba. כתב האגור, says the Agur, שהשיב מערי כל מולין, right? This rabbi had a tshuva on this. Al yain mazug le'inyan borei pei gefen, regarding diluted wine for the blessing of borei pei gefen. I forgot the be'alma pasak Rabbeinu Tam. So he says, even though Rabbeinu Tam paskin, the Tam Kikar, the Oraita, that the taste is considered to be like from the Torah. In other words, if it's considered to be the same as the food itself. Afilu the kula, even for leniency. Bracha, but he says when it comes to blessings, though, Hochiach Rabbeinu Tam proved, he says, so Perek Kama de Chulin, in the first Perek of Chulin, the Chad Beshita Batel. So he says 1 and 6 is nullified. The Lo Chashiv Tama Le'inyan Bracha. So he says then it's not going to be considered anymore the taste of the original. How about Yoter Michad Beshita Olchim Achar Tam? So he says, but if it's more than that, more than 1/6, this is what the Ramah said over here. It comes from here. The people are, accustomed to drink like that wine, to make it wine. So they're going to bless Borei Pei Gefen, according to this opinion. Katav Rash Tzemach, right? It says the Rash Betz, Al Zagim Shenatnu Aleim Tenim. So it says if you have like these grape seeds, right, that they put on them. Also, they added some figs, right, to lechazek koach hayayin, strengthen the strength of the potency of the wine. Hanishar bezagim, which is left over in the seeds. Im anu medamim portzanin shel tzimukim elu leportzanin shel anavim. So this is, we're going to compare the raisins to the grapes. So then we should go according to the majority. So he says there is some room to object on this, right? To Mishum the tenim kol kocham behem. This is because he says the figs, they're strong, they're very potent. Katav sheno samech levarech ala borei pei gefen. So it says in the end, right? He says I don't rely on this, right, situation to bless borei pei gefen. Okay, so we'll do Shulchan Aruch and we'll stop it here. Shulchan Aruch. So it says over here in Shulchan Aruch, temed, right? As we said, right, this liquor temed, right? She'osim mechatzanim, they make it from the skins, right? The husks. Shenotrim aleim maim, and they add water to it. They soak it like that. Dinam kishmarim. So he says these are like lees. That's when they were pressed with the beams, or the wooden beams, or whatever they call that. But if they were just pressed with the feet, by way of feet, even if he put 3 parts water, he only found 3 parts afterwards, or even less, then we bless Borei Pei Gefen. So he paskins like the Ramban, right, and the Rashba that they said this. So it depends on how you do it, right? Did you do it with a wooden beam, the pressing, or did you do it with feet? Okay. So it says פחות, שייכו והמים נבלעים בזגים, שיין, because it's wine, right? And the water is absorbed into the seeds, into the husks. שיוצא, יש בו יין מרובה. So it says that which comes out of it, there's a lot of wine there. Wow. So, okay, so bottom line, right? What is he saying over here? That this right, drink, this liquor that they make, temed, which, as we said, right, you're talking about soaking the husks of the grapes, the skins, right, with the seeds also. So that, is considered to be like lees of wine, the same thing, same ratio. As we said, right, our ratio is different today because the wines are not so strong. So for us, it will be like 50%, right? Same thing. That would be the cutoff. But he says, on the other hand, that's if you, right, pressed it with a beam, wooden beam, right? Whatever the thing is called. But if you pressed it with peat, so there it seems like it gets pressed better. That's this way. It's more efficient. So therefore, even if you right had no additional volume, by way of the lees, not the lees. I'm sorry, the husks. It's still the same volume as it was before. It's still going to be a appropriate geffen. Why? Because there's a lot of taste absorbed in there, from those husks. So therefore, the rule is going to be appropriate geffen. Okay, the truth is, nowadays we don't really drink this kind of stuff anymore. They just throw it away. Like everything is disposable today. In the old days, they wanted to use everything for all they could get out of it. Now everything is thrown away. Disposable. Okay, great. So yeah, marriages are also disposable in our times. Marriage lasts for 6 months, a year. And then we shouldn't see from it, right? Everything is disposable. Husbands, wives are disposable, right? Everything, anything goes. Okay, so says the Roma here, Zagim Shenatun Alem Tenim, right? So he brings this case, we saw with Yosef, which is that they added, also, right, to these skins, they added also the figs to make it stronger, right? Zagim Harov says even though the majority is these skins or the seeds, but he says it's really, the strength is coming there from the figs more. Right? So therefore you don't break. Okay, that's very interesting. We don't do these kinds of things today. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, so whatever. So, okay, so just one thing, we said all this, right? One thing I have to tell you in the end, don't drink and drive. Just, drink if you want to drink, but don't drive. Okay, we're getting to Purim soon. So, okay, thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. Chazak Baruch, Laila Tov. We'll see you tomorrow, Bezat Hashem. And hopefully we'll be sober, don't drink too much. Okay, all the best.
Thank you, Rabbi.
God bless.